Vote by calling the EOJ or checking the EOJ website. Remember to bring your voter ID card. Current voter ID cards are valid until December 2020. Remember, you may still vote without your ID card, but the process will be longer. Listen to the instructions of the presiding officer. Mark your ballot behind the voting booth and return your ballot to the presiding officer folded. Once the counterfoil is removed, your ballot cannot be traced back to you. Dip your finger in the ink and watch as your ballot is deposited into the ballot box.
Your vote is your voice. Make it count.
Tonight, 98 cases of COVID-19 recorded within the last 24 hours. Still tonight, the communities of Albion and Seaforth in St. Thomas placed in quarantine for 14 days until September 2. And Petrojam employee tests positive for COVID-19 and is now in self-quarantine. Good evening. In breaking news tonight, 98 new samples have tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. Of the 98 new cases, 10 are from a backlog of tests, while 88 are new samples. Jamaica now has a total of 1,290 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Now, of the newly confirmed cases, 46 are women and 52 are men. Regrettably, in the last 24 hours, Jamaica also recorded an additional COVID-19 related death. The deceased is a 74-year-old male from Clarendon. The total number of COVID-19 related deaths now stands at 15. Meanwhile, the total of active cases is 416. As we continue to look at the battleground seats targeted by both the Jamaica Labour Party JLP and the People's National Party PNP, join host Nicole Hales in the discussion with political analyst and acting director of institutional research at the Northern Caribbean University, Paul Bourne, the Jamaica Labour Party's candidate for the St. Elizabeth Northeastern constituency, Delroy Slowly, and St. Elizabeth Southeastern's JLP candidate, Franklin Witter, along with the People's National Party's candidate for the St. Elizabeth Northeastern constituency, Basil Waite. Now, our news team took to the streets to get the views of residents on whether or not they intend to vote despite the spike in COVID-19 cases.
No, COVID-19 won't stop me from going out to vote. I am willing to exercise my franchise.
Yes, I will be going out to vote. I don't think the rise in COVID case will affect my likelihood to go out to vote. It is a concern, and I think that the government is trying to do enough to put things in place so we can mitigate against the virus. But my right to go out and vote, I will be exercising that because I think it's a fundamental part, being a citizen. So I will be taking that responsibility.
Yes, I plan to vote if there is an election, because I don't sure there will be an election, even though the Prime Minister said that election day will be on the 3rd of September, because there are things that we have to take into consideration now based on the rise in cases. But however, if it keeps at that time, I'll definitely be going out to vote.
Well, yes, I will be going out to vote. Reason, well, it's a right that I have to do, and I think I will just do it.
Now, in the meantime, the Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, has reported that members of the security forces and election day workers are to cast their votes on Monday, August 31. 3 days prior to the general election. Now, the EOJ made the announcement on Tuesday while announcing the nomination of the 139 candidates set to contest the September 3 general election. Of the 139 candidates nominated, 18 are independent, 105 are male candidates, and 34 are females. The EOJ has intensified preparations for the upcoming elections, including assigning symbols to the independent candidates, the printing of ballots, distribution of supplies, and the preparation of polling stations. Still making news tonight, with the increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in St. Thomas, the communities of Albion and Seaforth are now under quarantine for 14 days, which began today at 5 a.m. and will end on September 2. The communities have recorded 13 cases within the last 3 weeks. Many of the cases are symptomatic, which is cause for concern and suggests that there may be ongoing transmission within the communities. The Health Ministry says community surveillance will be conducted over the next 2 weeks for the early detection of new cases. Measures will also be implemented in a bid to contain the spread of the virus within the parish. The other communities in the parish now under quarantine are Bamboo River, Church Corner and Lower Summit, and they will also remain in quarantine on September 2. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reminding members of the public to strictly adhere to the prescribed COVID-19 prevention and control measures, including the frequent washing of hands, maintaining 6 feet physical distance from others, and wearing a mask while out in public. Still making news tonight, Petrojam has reported that a member of its team tested positive for COVID-19 and is now in self-quarantine. The company's Occupational Health Unit, OHU, has since activated its response protocol and has begun conducting contact tracing to identify all employees who may have interfaced with the team member. Petrojam announced that their administrative offices were closed as at 3:30 p.m. today and will reopen on August 24, 2020. The company will be carrying out deep cleaning and sanitization of the relevant work areas and common spaces within the next 24 hours. Petrojam wishes to assure the public that there will be no disruption in fuel supply to the market. Still making Mello TV news, Minister of Education, Youth and Information Carl Samuda says a risk assessment of trends in the new COVID-19 cases is being done by health officials to assist in determining whether the proposed phased reopening of schools for the 2020-2021 academic year beginning on September 7 should proceed or be delayed. He said, and I quote, "If the cases continue to spike and it is deemed unsafe for students and teachers to physically return to school, we will have to reassess and put in place contingency plans to face that eventuality." End quote. The minister advised that the ministry will engage stakeholders in dialogue on the matter before a final decision is made. However, he noted that the administration is mindful of the latest developments with COVID-19 cases and they are being carefully monitored. Mr. Samuda emphasized that the safety of the nation's teachers and students is of paramount importance, adding that while face-to-face interaction in the classroom environment is essential, the ministry will not put the health of its teachers as well as students at risk. He informed that if the upsurge in COVID-19 cases continues, the government will have no choice but to delay the phased reopening of schools. In news from St. James, business mogul Anthony Tony Hart has passed away from pneumonia. Mr. Hart had been battling with pneumonia, which was complicated by heart failure. The iconic businessman was awarded the Order of Jamaica in 2017 for his contribution to nation building. He is credited as being the person behind the development of the Montego Bay Freeport and has held leadership roles across the public and private sectors, including Caymanas Track Limited, Apparel Handlers, the Coconut Industry Board, and Federal Records Limited. Now, in 2013, he was inducted into the PSOJ's Hall of Fame and 2 years later inducted into the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry Business Leaders Wall of Fame. He passed away at the age of 87. In news from Clarendon, the police are investigating a case of robbery with aggravation that occurred earlier today in Rocky Point. More on this story with Tamara McHale.
A well-known JLP activist was left hospitalized after he was attacked by unknown assailants at his house in Rocky Point, Clarendon early this morning. The man, who is a 46-year-old fisherman, was robbed of $4 million as well as 2 cellular phones. Investigators say the criminals gained access to the premises after pretending to be police officers. Meanwhile, the police say they are treating the case as a robbery but are not ruling out any other motive. Colonel Charles Jr. is reacting following concerns that the attack was fueled by politics.
This morning I received another call relating to another one of my party workers, strong party workers in the Rocky Point division, who was involved in an incident of violence which has led him to now be in surgery. I want Jamaica to know that we are not going to be intimidated by any act of violence, political or otherwise. Violence causes there to be a suppression of the vote, fear in the minds of those potential voters and our workers. And so we have to send a clear message that we reject violence of all kinds.
PNP Southeast Clarendon candidate Patricia Duncan Sutherland also commented on the attack.
Condolences again to Paul Henry's family and to Gurley Bent, his mother and his wife, and all of them, you know, because it's always rough to lose a family member. Gurley Bent, I just want to say this again, is the cousin of one of my cluster managers. And the thing about Southeast Clarendon is everybody in the political process on both sides of the fence are family. And over the last 18 years, we have had very peaceful and friendly campaigns. You know, we run a politics of partnership and love in Southeast Clarendon. Everybody live good together.
Thursday's attack on the fisherman is the second attack in Southeast Clarendon this week on a JLP activist. For Mello TV News, I am Tamara McHale.
Still in Clarendon, the police are investigating a suspected case of arson that occurred last night. More on this story with Colleen May.
Case of arson that occurred in the Mapen Market last night. As a result of the blaze, several stalls and shops were destroyed. An estimate of the damage is not yet available, but one vendor said she lost over $400,000 in property in the blaze.
When I was at my house last night, I get a phone call that my shop is under fire. I am both a florist, I do read for funeral home, and I have like goods in there like melon, onion, garlic, pumpkin, and I have clothes inside it. So all of it burned out. One roll of ribbon inside of my shop costs $1,600, and I have over 50 roll of ribbon inside there. I have clothes inside there. Well, I would estimate the damage as $400,000 because up to an industrial surgery machine is inside there.
Some of the shops were owned by persons aligned to the Jamaica Labour Party JLP, which has raised questions about a political motive. Mapen's Mayor Winston Maraj addressed the concerns.
Now, last night I got a call that there was a fire in the Mapen Market. When I made some calls, I found out later on that it was the business place of the councillor caretaker for the Mapen West Division, Mrs. Lorraine Green Mason. And it was raised by fire, by unknown persons, of course, and the entire place, business place, was burnt. She runs a bookstore and other businesses in the market. So that again is telling me that this is politics at work.
Reporting from Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Still making Mello TV news, the Bank of Nova Scotia has pledged its support to the Jamaica Debate Commission with a commitment of $5 million that will go towards the staging of this year's 2020 national debate. Scotiabank has described itself as a long-time supporter of the democratic process and added that it considers the debates as an important vehicle to assist the general public in making informed choices going into an election. President and CEO of Scotia Group Jamaica Limited, David Noel, says Scotiabank salutes the excellent work that the Debate Commission has done in previous elections and continues to do to help foster a vigorous democratic process. This year, the Commission will stage 3 debates on August 25, 27 and 29 respectively, and will cover topics of public interest such as social issues, finance and economic strategy. And those were the stories making news. I am Shelley Ann Hill. We'll now join Nicole Hales with Decision 2020.